Hey, what's going on, everybody? Just like that, welcome to Hash Church, episode, what are we, 139 right now? Just noticing that 9 o'clock was hitting and it was time to go live. I am here in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia, and yeah, loving life. I'm going to send out the links here real quick, if you guys don't mind. We'll send this link out real quick. Ding! We'll hope for the email ones to go out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Send it away. All right, so there we go. Welcome to Whistler, everybody. Welcome to Whistler. Let me see, move that over here. Ah, yes, it's not going to work, John. My emails don't work anymore. So all the people that I send email invitations to, which is really just Subcool and Indra, I can't send them anymore. So there's that. Hey, how you doing, Skunkman Sam? With a muted mic. And Etienne. Etienne, Skunkman Sam beat you in today.
Minor technical difficulty. I have my new Logitech camera, so I had to switch it over.
Yes. Well, Sam hasn't been able to figure out how to unmute his mic, so even though he was here before you still got the first words in.
Well, that puppet speaks a lot, man. I mean, it says everything and has done everything, so I still bow to the great puppet.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm just sitting here in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia. Got a bunch of people doing yoga down in front of my place here.
That's a stretch.
Yeah, that is a stretch, isn't it? No pun intended. What's going on, Sam?
Pun intended.
What's going on with your mic, Sam? You muted up or what? Or you came live and then you went to the bathroom? What's going on?
Yeah, we've got mute still.
Well, how was your week, Etienne?
Week was good. Got to meet Dr. Riz. Found out that we've been pronouncing her name wrong. It's Dr. Riz.
Oh, right.
I saw one of her fellow researchers give a presentation at the Patients at a Time conference in Berkeley and referred to her as Dr. Riz. And I whispered into her ear, I was like, okay, I've been introduced to you as Dr. Riz, and I just heard your partner there call you Dr. Riz. So which is it? She says, it's Riz. I was like, well, you're quite the professional to take all that. Right, Dr. Sheldon?
No, that's Dr. Scaldone.
Yeah, no, Dr. Sheldon, that's right. You can call me Dr. Skeldon. I don't care what people call me. But yeah, I think it's Dr. Rise, right?
It's Riz. It's Dr. Riz. She said it's Riz.
Oh, damn it. I've been saying it wrong.
You know
and
what,
she's been amazingly gracious, and you know, I'm like myself. When people mispronounce my name, I'm used to it. It's just how it goes with a funny name like Etienne. But you know, because yeah, you name it, I've been called it from, you know, people when I grew up thought my name was a letter and a number, so they thought my name was
Etienne.
A10.
A10.
So
as long as they call me for lunch, I'm a happy guy.
And that's how I feel. As long as you don't call me anything you want except late for dinner, then we're good.
You know what? I think you're more inspired to be called for bong rips than lunch, but that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, but bong rips make me hungry.
This is true too. This is true too. Oh,
well, bong hits, then food, rinse, lather, repeat.
Exactly. Oh, well, has everyone been having a good week? What's going on in the week of cannabis? I've kind of been out of the loop a little bit. I've been doing my wake and bake shows every morning, which has been kind of fun. Got a nice little crowd of people that sort of pop in there every morning for a little sesh. But other than that, I haven't been overly active. I guess Lyft is next week in Toronto. I'll be seeing Tony and the whole UCAN team is heading out for that. So very much so looking forward to that. It's always a good event. See what's happening in Toronto, see what's going on with the dispensaries. And, you know, it's a crazy situation. Yesterday I get, it's sort of the explanation of the problem here in Canada with our medical situation, which is we have LPs, great. There's a legal method for people to follow, a legal platform to get their medicine. However, you got to admit when you're dying that legal is probably maybe one of the last things you're really concerned about. And so recently both my uncle and my auntie have cancer right now. My auntie just had a bunch of her spine taken out, and my uncle is just getting worse and worse and worse. He's been a little leery of taking cannabis, which is crazy because his other brother, my other uncle, is very, very much a cannabis proponent and has used cannabis recreational for the last 45 years. So he's very, trying to turn his brother and sister on to something that can help them. And
What
so
kind of cancer does he have, Mark?
Well, my uncle, it's like esophageal, I think, and a couple of others. It's not good for sure. My auntie had spinal. Yeah, definitely not good. He's in a lot of pain. They've got him on the morphine pills and they're not doing anything. So he finally took some cannabis coconut oil extract the other day. And, he called my uncle up, of course, and was just like, this is unbelievable. How can it take away pain? Like, it makes everything manageable. He's not saying that it's taken away his pain 100%, but he's like, listen, when you're in pain, lying in bed and can't do anything, and now you're just up in the atom and you're doing your thing, but the pain's kind of way in the background. Huge revelation for him. So here I am in a situation where I want to help my uncle. I want to get him some meds. And the LPs here in Canada just don't really have what he needs. And not because, anything that they've done wrong, but because the government has put limitations upon what they can do in regards to selling extracts and concentrates. And the dilution factor of the concentrates are so low that for someone with like a stage 3 or a stage 4 cancer, it's just not the most comforting dose to be able to take. You want to be able to take something heavy. So of course I'm phoning my good friend Sarah Sunday out in Toronto. She's really got her finger on the pulse out there, and asking her. She's like better than any LP. She's given me this guy with lotions, this guy with tinctures, this woman with butter, this woman with coconut oil extract. We've got patches, we got capsules, it's unbelievable to think that the dispensaries, the civil disobedience that's being practiced is just so outperforming in the availability category that of the dispensaries. So it's a shame that Health Canada has done that. You got a company like an LP that invests millions of dollars for that license. And if they mess up, they don't get to keep the license. And then you have the civil disobedience of a dispensary who just says, listen, we're basically just trying to keep people alive. And so that's our mission statement. So props to you, Etienne, for doing such a great mission statement for so long.
I know we're coming up on 18 years, but it still affects my life. I had an ex reach out to me just this week. I gave her a Volcano because one of her best friends, who actually had a preventative double mastectomy because her mother had breast cancer, has developed breast cancer now. So I had to put her through the regimen. So I had a couple spare Volcanoes. So I was like, here's a Volcano, go get a new bag set, and started on their regimen of, okay, let's look at the THC and CBD. And of course, at the Patients at a Time conference this week, there is of course great further talk about the success of THC and CBD combined. So of course, educating around that, because as Fred Gardner says, it's more like a 1-2 punch. THC's holding down and CBD's is like hitting it in the gut, and it just kills the cell, and it's one of those realities that has really come to a fruition for, unfortunately, too many people, and it's not stopping anytime soon. So people say, oh, with legalization, with medical marijuana go away. And unfortunately, as Todd and others who have had cancer can attest to, it's not going away anytime soon. Todd's clear, just saying that. But, the reality of cancer is it's very frustrating. And the great thing about cannabis and CBD and THC is it turns that cell off, and not only that, both those, and it's still, science is still trying to figure out why both of those can still penetrate the cell and cause the cell death to transpire. So science is still moving forward. Another fascinating study I saw was on sleep deprivation in cannabis on people who have nocturnal schedules. It was done by a study out of New York City. And one that I remember when I used to work odd schedules is cannabis and THC seem to help you relax better, help you actually be cognitive and better motivated through those situations, as well as it helps you get a better night's sleep, so you can also help deal with the odd work schedule. So it was the first study of its kind dealing with nocturnal schedules and cannabis as a motivator as well as a cognitive assistant.
Yeah. I was looking forward to the cancer panel that was going to be happening in Toronto this upcoming weekend with Dr. Brent Reynolds, who of course discovered stem cells for his thesis there. He works for United Cannabis. He's always very interesting to listen to talk. The guy has an unbelievable, incredible amount of information in his head, and he articulates it very beautifully. So I know Tony's going to be on that panel as well. I'll definitely record it. It's an unfortunate hot topic in the life of human beings, cancer. Not sure I've ever met anyone who hasn't been touched by it, you know, very closely. Even as we're talking about it here in the chat room, you see people lighting it up saying, yeah, this is touching very close to home right now, this conversation. Of course, it's unbelievable. Cancer is so pervasive. It's frightening.
It touches all of our lives, as you said, you know, and once you see and you've watched a loved one go through this and they're actually helpless on the sidelines, and once you've figured out something like cannabis here that actually helps people, you'd be damned if you keep your mouth shut anymore. And I've had more people come out to me out of the closet saying, I can't hide anymore. I can't let this person suffer anymore. What do I need? How do I get there? Where's my starter kit? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's a constant humbling reality that always regrounds us and always never lets us forget why we're here. And when we hear the talk of, oh, well, it's all about the money and all that stuff nowadays, and as the industry is changing and growing, it still all comes back to the simple fact that people are sick and people need medicine, and we need to communicate as best as we can so we can help them acquire or find the best genetic that it can possibly help them, you know, or genetics.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a tough one. You've got, it's an interesting community because you have on one side of things this group of people whose foundations, you know, the David Hutchinsons, the Wendy Turners, whose foundation has been to try and improve the quality of their kids' life or try to save their kids' life. And that is a far, far, far distance from, you know, the sort of prohibition-based mentality of cannabis that sort of taught a lot of people that, hey, listen, you don't have to work that shitty job. If you just grow a little bit of herb and you take care of kind of just your community, you should be able to pay off your house and your car payment if you just stay low key. And it's sort of, these two things have intertwined so strongly that it's very difficult. I can only imagine from the perspective of someone that does not know this community or industry at all, but is coming to it as a stranger, as a patient or a patient advocate for a patient. Man, how do you know what the right information is? How do you know who the good people are? How do you navigate this unbelievably complex sort of?
And people like Wendy Turner who have done it right, who will even tell you about the scam artists and those people that have come out of the woodworks, unfortunately, to exploit Colton or her or others in the situation, literally selling snake oil in comparison, you know.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating, and this is where I've always pushed to, from my perspective. I know I'm very limited and small in that's really pushed for testing, and so that we can make sure that what we have is actually what we're saying we're having, so that we know what's actually baseline in the medicine that we have, so that we had somewhere to start. And now we're past the THC, now we're to the CBD, now we're starting to talk about terpenes, and science is doing all kinds of testing in areas that 10 years ago was impossible for us to even find. Now it becomes a staple, and here soon will become regular commerce at some resolve in some states, but not all.
My newest variety, I named it snake oil.
Well, you know, listen, Wendy was going off the other day. I saw a post of hers, and she was really upset about this woman who was writing an article. She had written it a couple of times. She was stating that Colton had acquired his Crohn's from antibiotics, which was just not the case. Colton acquired his Crohn's from bacteria from drowning in the lake. This is from Wendy herself. I would never try to say anything that wasn't true in regards to their story, because it really is their story, and we're just here to sort of share it and let people know about it. But she was really upset that this woman she's like, look, I'm not even pro antibiotics, but I'm not going to say it was antibiotics when it wasn't antibiotics. So there's not only, you know, just trying to find this solid people with the good information. There's a lot of people out there with misinformation, muddying the pond, making it a lot harder for people to see clearly to the bottom. to find what they need.
And a lot of those people are consciously doing it and have their own agenda to push.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it over the course of the last 40 years, Sam, particularly in regards to the model that you decided to go about the production of, you know, medicinal cannabis through the pharma model. I can only imagine how much you've seen it, or the people you've sat in rooms with who are just wearing that agenda right on their face. They're
Absolutely.
out there. I've seen them. It's happening deep in Canada right now. I'm really hoping that Canada can just sort of pull together, stop looking at the, you know, each other as the enemy, LP versus dispensary, but really realize that the fence in the middle that's creating the two sides is Health Canada, is the government. And I look forward to seeing a lot more sort of, how would I put it, just connection between LPs and dispensaries.
It's like Chairman Mao said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. That everybody should try their method to deliver relief and recreational and spiritual cannabis to everybody. And there is no best way. There always should be possible.
Agreed. You know, that sentence stands out so strong after, remember, of course, Irv coming in and telling us about his low quality cannabis and all of us wanting him to have the best quality, and him telling us this works great for us, which is a real perfect example of what Sam just said. Every way should be allowed. This is a multifunctional plant that has 50,000 commercial uses, and there's probably 1,000 different ways to inhale it. It's broad, so use them. Use it to all of its abilities.
Broader than Broadway.
Broader than Broadway. Even the narrow leaf drug cultivars are broad.
And thanks again, Sam, for making it possible.
Yes, thanks for inventing cannabis.
I have it all patented.
Thanks for inventing cannabis, Sam.
And thanks for patenting patents on the patentable plant.
Hey, can I get a shot of that whole shirt, Etienne? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hash. Hey, why don't we have a little bubble rip? I haven't had anything today yet. I went out on my deck earlier and the ruffians.
For shame.
Well, the ruffians that were upstairs were making so much noise that I couldn't even come out and have a little ripple. So here we go. We're going to have a little ripple out here. It is Hash Church. We've got D420K and Johnny B are, of course, I believe in Calgary at the Vernon Cannabis Cup or some type of a Cannabis Cup event. They got the shitty internet, so we won't be seeing those guys today, but I'm sure they'll let us know how it all went in the upcoming days.
Speaking of Irvin, I got to see Irvin as well. Irvin and Elvie are both at the Patients at a Time, or we're at the Patients at a Time conference.
Right. I thought Todd maybe was going to have them on today. I remember him saying something about that, but...
yeah, stay tuned.
Stay tuned. No worries if not, but it'd be great to see Todd, as always. As always, so I have absolutely run my torch. I kind of got this weak sauce torch thing going on where it dies. It doesn't close properly, so it just leaks the last little bit of the gas out into the room, and then I don't have the ability to take a dab. Oh, woe is me. Woe is me.
You could whistle in your response.
Did you run
I know.
Electricity in your neighborhood?
Did I run out of what?
Electricity.
No, I could set up my D-nail inside, but I didn't bring a cord, and I'm out on this little deck, and so it's probably not going to be as easy to set up the D-nail out here. So I'm using pity for me, Kaylee, pity for me.
First world problems, ladies and gentlemen. First world problems.
Yes. Oh, Mr. Scaldone, if you want to send the link to Indra, I can't send links out via email anymore. For whatever reason, this computer won't let me send emails, and I'm really not, I think that if you want to be on the show, figure out a way I can get you the link that works. I know you can send it to him, so that would be great if you could. I don't want him to think that...
yeah, I think he's a little under the weather. Hold on, I got a text from him earlier.
Regardless, I still like to be able to send him the text so he doesn't feel like I'm mad at them or I'm not sending them a text. I just Subcool's the same. If someone has Subcool and they want to send them the text, that would be the link. That would be great. For whatever reason, it's just every time I try to send an email off this computer now, it won't find the server. Somehow something's been changed in the back end, and I'll have to deal with it.
They probably listed your address as spam.
You think? No, I can't send an email from this email on this computer, Sam. It says server not found, and it does not send any email, not just to John, like to anyone. Something I gotta fix.
How is that possible?
Well, let me tell you exactly. If you guys want to do some troubleshooting right now, we can do that. I'll show you exactly what it says when I go to send out an email, and then you guys help me out here and see if that's all right. Cannot send message using the server Hotmail. Select a different outgoing mail server for the list below, or click try later to leave the message in your inbox until it can be sent. So I have
there's your problem. Hotmail, no.
I have 5 servers, and if I choose Google or Outlook or what's the other one? iCloud, none of them work. So something major in the back of the registration is
if I'll tell you the honest truth. If you pay me $39.99, then I'll free up your computer again for you.
But in Bitcoin only, right?
In Bitcoin only, and nobody can know that it's me behind it all. Otherwise, I'll get in trouble.
This is how it starts. Oh, lovely rips in the morning of some Congo bongo. I had luckily 2 bangers here. One of my bangers like broke in half yesterday. I was quite dismayed. Oh
yeah. Yes, always travel with backup when traveling.
You called it, man. Always bring a backup.
Why did it break in half? Was it hot? Was it hit?
Dude, it was completely cold. It was completely cold. I've had this thing for a long time. Now, I did drop it in Kingston, Jamaica, and break the whole bottom of it. So it was like Sharpie teeth where you plug it into the pipe. It had the time. But I used it like that for a year. Now, it didn't break there. It broke up the unit on the neck. And what happened was I went to grab it the other day and just pull it out of the pipe. And I just pulled the top right off the neck. It just went, chip, which was very rare. I've never seen quartz do that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Is the stem also quartz?
The whole thing is quartz, yeah.
Well, so far, mine seems to be impervious to all things.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing. I've done a lot of thermal shock on this thing. I've heated this thing up to like orange hot and just dropped it right into cold water like 500 times, like literally.
Well, after you told me you were doing that, I started doing it too. No problem at all.
It's a great way to test your quartz because real quartz won't be affected and anything else will break.
If it's not, you just shattered your glass.
Yeah, I would not suggest doing it with borosilicate. Oh my goodness. Wow, it's going to be a quick church today, a couple of hours, I think. I did want to shout out an Instagram account that we've been working on a little bit. It is the Bubbleman brand Instagram account. Tony's finally really in like, he's redlining it right now. He's finally like put this bad boy into gear. The lab is pretty much complete and he's been pumping out some resin. So go check out that Bubbleman brand Instagram account. Give us a follow there, and we'll keep you updated in regards to what's coming out and where it's heading. Because hey, we don't do this shit. Good people like Etienne do. Boom, there it is. Bubbleman brand. Yeah, we simplified it. I didn't, some simple little logo, a B, perfect. It's the only B you'll see that's all A grade.
I was about to say it may say B on the front, but it means A on the inside.
That is correct. We're changing.
Remember in the 40s and 50s there were B girls?
The B girls. And what about the B boys?
Well, you smoke B girls, don't you?
Smoke? I don't smoke B anything except Bubbleman brand. It's
That's
all A
B.
plus.
And that's made from girls, and it's a B.
How about Blue River? That begins with a B, right?
It does. It does. We've got
Coincidence or more?
Is this different than Blue River or what?
what's that? Well, we do collaborations with Blue River, but yeah, my brand is very different from Blue River. It's like this. For 14 or 15 years, I made bubble bags and taught many, many people how to make water hash. And now, almost 20 years later, we're like, why don't we offer the final product? We've never been able to work with an illegal mechanism that would allow us to sell the actual product, the hash. So after almost 17 years, now we can. And that's kind of really what it's all about. Yes, PK Brewer's got it. Hey, PK Brewer, sorry about your mom, by the way. Terrible news. Yeah, really sorry to hear that. I hope that you find the strength that you need to deal with such a thing. Terrible, terrible. Constant losses, constant gains. Life is up and down, I'll tell you. Man. And then the older you get, you freaked me out, Sam, when we were in Jamaica years ago, when you told me as I get older, more of my friends are dying than I'm even making new friends. And I was like, damn, that's like a crazy statement. And
yeah,
I was like,
I'm also sort of like a cave dweller that, doesn't reach out a lot anymore.
well, you know what? It wasn't about, I didn't really pay attention to that aspect of it as much as just paying attention to that aspect of, obviously as you get older and you live longer and longer, what you eventually do is you outlive your friends. And that's just, that's heavy. That is heavy. Constant minor adjustments. One day Bubbleman brand will reach Pennsylvania. You know what? You are correct. One day Bubbleman brand will reach Pennsylvania. Hopefully our group gets their permits and licenses over there, and we'll be able to announce who it is that we're working with.
It's the Amish, I already know.
It's the what?
The Amish.
Yes, the Amish. Yes, I'm working with the Amish.
If they're the B girls, they can be the Amish.
Maybe they're the Beamish.
Hey, those Mennonites grow pretty well too, I bet.
Telling you, dude. Anything to do with connection to the...
have property down in Mexico and in Belize and further down?
Certain of it. It's kind of chilly out here on the deck. I'm going to head inside. There's still snow in those mountains,
You can see it.
Indeed, you can. These are the back mountains. Whistler's actually on the other side of me right now, but lovely. The Beamish brand. All right, I'm ready to get on some trails this summer. Hey, yesterday was the opening day of the bike park for any of you that love the fun of getting out on the bikes and heading downhill. Lots of action in the village yesterday, I'll tell you. Holy shit. Must have been like $4 million worth of bicycles. Like, no joke. Just $4 million worth of bikes. It's more bikes than you see at Chalice for rigs. And each bike is worth about the same as a rig. It's pretty unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts what people spend on both. I mean, just accoutrement just for bikes can spend you as much as a bike, much less the bike itself.
Yeah, exactly. I saw my friend spent $3,200 on some shocks for the front of his bike, and I was just like, what?
Well, the most bikes I've ever seen is in Amsterdam. But that said, they're not a lot of expensive bikes. There's mostly people have really expensive bikes. They take them indoors with them when they don't leave them on the street.
The Dutch bikes are just heavy as hell. They're old school steel. Yeah. Just,
10 guilders, baby.
All day long.
You want the bike? You're looking like you're needing to go somewhere fast. Here, this one is for 10 guilders. It's a good price. You can just leave it anywhere. It's like a new. They were doing that free bike program before it was a free bike program, and just kind of taxing everyone 10 guilders.
If you've seen, I know you have, Sam, when they actually drain.
I've seen it. I've got pictures of it.
And pull out just ungodly amounts of bikes.
How the hell did the boats even go? Some of those bikes must be like 6 inches from the top of the water. I have photos. They sit. I don't know if the guy was on the bridge. I think he might have been in the water on this like kind of arm thing, and he was pulling out bikes like 10 at a time and putting them on the side of the canal. It was unbelievable. I thought.
There's also shopping carts, refrigerators, cook stoves.
Just people dumping everything in there, hey?
Yep. They obviously watched an old Roman movie and figured, hell, if they can do it, why can't we?
That's so shitty. It's like, you know what? Don't be shitty. Don't be hiding shit in the canal, you bastard. It's like, damn, I'll tell you one thing about those canals. You sure never wanted to fall in one. Ooh.
Yeah, it's really crazy too because I mean, if you have a house on the canal, all you have to do is call the trash people and say you're going to put a refrigerator or whatever out on the street, and they'll come and take it away.
Yeah, but that's a call that they just don't want to have to make, Sam.
Yeah, it hurts their little finger.
Yeah, you know, all that dialing? That's ridiculous. People on drugs do crazy shit. You know, another way of saying that is cocaine is a hell of a drug. Dave Chappelle, for those of you that missed the reference there. Rick James, Dave Chappelle. Oh, yeah. And then how often do those canals freeze? Not very often, hey?
When I first got here 30 years ago, it seemed like they froze more often. But, yeah, good enough that you can ice skate them on, you know, once every 3-5 years, something like that.
I got to say, that's an experience I'd like to do. I'd like to go skate the canals in Amsterdam. For the 30 or 40 times I've been in that city, I have never skated on the canals.
They also have a race. I forget what it is, like 100 kilometers or 200 kilometers on ice in Holland when the weather's correct. And
wow.
Yeah, it's a really big thing.
That's well, awesome. Ice skating there is a very big thing. They've got Olympic champions and world champions from there, so the Dutch take their ice skating very seriously.
Yep.
They're all over it. I remember like many years, you know, on my way into the Melkweg and the Leidseplein and seeing that big crazy skating rink set up that wasn't really a skating rink. It was like plexiglass with like foam that they sprayed on top of it. And then you wore these plastic skates and it was the most awkward thing ever.
No, when it's really cold, what they do is they build a little like dam thing there, and they fill it full of water and they freeze it and let everybody go ice skating for free right at the Leidseplein.
Right, but what I'm saying is during
I understand the difference.
Yeah, that the ice skating is awesome, but the thing that I'm talking about, because I did it at least once with a bunch of my moron friends on the way into the Melkweg, literally with Ruhr bags around our shoulders. And we're just like, yeah, let's just try this out. And it was sketchy, man. It was like you could break an ankle on that thing. Definitely an ankle breaker. And then go have some of those delicious little pastries on the street there. Leidseplein. That's a good place to keep your head up. If you want to learn Amsterdam, the Leidseplein's a good spot. You know, go walk down the Leidseplein, try not to get hit by any bikes or a tram.
Or a pickpocket.
Or a pickpocket, yeah. You know, all the years of going to Amsterdam, I never got pickpocketed. I never got
or watch out for pickpocketing trams. Those
pickpocketing.
I was pickpocketed, and I was on my way to the bank, and I was on a tram, and luckily I got to the bank, got back on the tram, was pickpocketed right after I had deposited all my frickin' money.
Oh my God, that guy was the worst thief ever.
Like, so he got the receipt and was like, too late.
Pickpockets.
I got the wallet and all the IDs back. It was really crazy.
I when I was actually in the Netherlands back in 95, I actually had to swat a guy's hand out of my then wife's backpack because his hand was already deep down in there, and it was just very casual on the tram right next to us, but his pickpocketing skills were very well done, and he took a great shove, but he went away. But they take it as an art there.
What they do is they kick them out, but it's usually being run by gangs, and they're replaced within an hour or two. So, I mean, because they've already got other people here to do the work. It's all really super organized.
I think the really organized
a three-man team to pickpocket. One guy grabs the wallet, the other guy's a lookout, and the other one receives the wallet immediately so that the guy who grabbed it doesn't have it.
Well, they're archaic because I'll tell you, the guys that are building those covers for the bank machines, those guys are robbing people. You know, you go on your vacation and you put your bank machine in the machine, but it's actually the little piece is a cover.
Yeah, but think of the guys who sent that virus out that affected hundreds of thousands of computers worldwide and demanded $39.99. I'm not saying it was me, but
I'm not saying it was me, but man, did I get a lot of money. 90U Bubble. I'm with Kevin. I also love 90U Bubble. What delicious stuff. What absolutely delicious stuff. I'd hit it till it was done. Then I'd hit my 73 till it was done. Then I'd hit my 120 till it was done. I'd puff on the 45 and probably be surprised. I'd be like, wow, 45 is actually pretty, like, it's okay. It's like, okay, I'll admit it. The only time I smoke 45 is when I have nothing else. But I do smoke it, whereas I won't really even smoke the 25. That's for medibles and shit. What about you, Etienne? You puffing on the 25 ever?
Very rarely. Yeah, I never really played with the bag so much. I played with like the original machine, and that was one of my major things. But I've smoked all different layers of things done in your product line. It's just the water thing became way too labor intensive for me, and God help you if you don't change that water out in time and all those things. It's a process, and a process I can't come to learn and respect greatly, and from doing it myself. And there was nothing at the time like the quality of the hash that we had. I mean, it was people sought you out once they heard of this bubble, and then they heard that you had it, and then then they had to try it, and then they have to see the machine, and then they want to see how it works, and then they want to make some. And so it's a fascinating, it's a great communal aspect of getting people involved, because it's usually their first foray into hash, because most of the hash that was available was crap. Two, it wasn't of a great quality, and they've never had a fresh type of hash. So it was the first exposure, and one of the reasons why we carry different products still that are bubble, because it works and it's consistent, and people can work it and do it and make it possible, so that if you've got plants, you can make hash, and not only that, high grade hash that they would have never had aspect or consideration before.
To show them two things simultaneously, which is to be able to extract your heads into a ratio of 99.9% heads. That alone was amazing. But then to be able to say, and we're going to separate them all out into different micron diameters to see what we got. That was really like the people, I called it the eyebrow raise, because whenever I pulled the 73 bag, people were like, the eyebrows went up. They were like, what the fuck?
It changed the game forever, because then it made them realize.
That, Marcus, the truth of it is that with the more different varieties you have, the more you need it.
And that's what we've learned over time, and just sieving cannabis, is that different plants provide different size heads. And so yours specialized toward that reality and made people also understand that depth, because people thought, oh, a trichome is a trichome is a trichome. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now they realize there's different ones. There's also different types, from the glandular to the stalk,
Oh, yeah. To the environment, because I'll never forget. This is the Mullen Madman back in probably 2000 or 2001 sent me some of the Mullumbimby Madness. He sent me seeds. He sent me hash. And I was smoking the hash, and I was like, my God, it was like my 73. I was like, it's just so creamy and melty and beautiful. I'm like, what micron is this? He's like, oh, that's the 25. That's always the best. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, the heads are fucking tiny. And I sort of started thinking, oh, the sativas must have tiny heads. But when we grew them indoors, that really wasn't the case. So I started being like, what the fuck? Like, is it only when they're grown in this tropical sun of Australia and grow real big? Like, is it just a cultivar that he happens to have? Like, but it was a thing that sort of led me down this road that it really does move around vastly, especially if you move around the entire planet. There's a lot of different environments out there that these genetics can grow in, and they seem to do different things with the resin. It's the only 25 I really ever smoked, like, first. Well,
do you see any further additions to the bag line, or do you think it's pretty well set for its numbers and ratios currently?
It's pretty well set. We thought about that 100 between the 120 and the 90, but I mean, it's We played around with a lot of bags over the years.
Is it so minuscule, or do you get an actual
Listen,
100?
if you put a 50 bag kit in, you'd be blown away at how many different bags would have resin heads. There's so many of them, and they don't all just grow the same size. There's different maturity rates, and from forever. There's smaller ones like at the end of the life cycle. There's ones that are still clear, unless you've left it really go a long time. Some of the only resin I've ever photographed that's just been like amber and red all the time has been Sam's. So,
hey Sam, you're the master botanist here. So when you see a plant, how do you know when a plant is ready to harvest? I've heard everything from you want to make sure it's mature just on the top, mature throughout.
There is no set rule. What you have to do is pull a particular clone too early, just right, and too late. Then you know.
Bingo. Yeah, where you want it. I've kind of given the same answer, and
that's
I'm not
also the other truth is when do you want it as compared to somebody else.
That's it. And there's the generalization that you're going to create something is a little more racy if you cut it down early, or a little more lethargic if you cut it. I don't think that fits, but it does for maybe one or two cultivars.
Well, it can be done just by the terpenes.
Right.
So, and in general, I kind of almost think that maybe there's truth to it.
Well, I've here in the Bay, I mean, back in the day, Richard Lee, when he was growing Skunk One, he always harvested at 6.5 weeks as opposed to letting it go any further. He liked it a little more of an upper high, and he felt that at that ratio, where not only were you able to get more, but you also get an upper lifting.
I preferred it more at 8 weeks, but that said, if I was making seeds on it, I'd let them be pollinated for 10 weeks because I'm growing the seeds, not the weed.
Gotcha.
And then who knows?
The weed gets fucked up. It's the seeds that I'm trying to make.
And you can get different effects as well. I mean, people I know who grow the OG, there's those that, pick it early for effect, and those that let it go really late for that really couch lock effect. So it's also dependent.
Well, I'll tell you, if you get really, really good weed and you are able to clean the resin up really, really good, then what you'll find is that seeded versus unseeded, there's not as big a difference as people think. But you'll never get unseeded resin that's not better than the same clone of seeded resin. The seeded resin always has a little bit less THC, a tiny bit, and quite a bit less terpenes, because the plant puts all its energy into seed making.
Interesting. I wonder, but what about the theory that terpenes are for, pests to save the seed life? Would it not then do a...
Well, it might be in some cases, but I guarantee you, I've seen every different kind of cannabis plant in the world covered with pests. So either it ain't working that day or...
Well, even just maybe animals like deers coming, like when we planted the hemp in Manitoba, the deer came in early, they started eating it, and then the plant seemed to get a little more like sticky and resiny. We were surprised at how, like, we had never grown hemp before. We were young guys. We had never seen hemp. We were still even of the mentality that it was going to be very different. We were like, this looks just like bud.
Well, when I grew in Pennsylvania, which I grew some plants in Pennsylvania, deer ate 41 out of 42 plants that I had.
Jesus.
Gone.
I've seen deer and smaller mammals go after cannabis both for the leaf, for the seeds, and just to suck the moisture out of the plants.
Oh wow. That's incredible. Yeah, they were nibbling away at our Zolotenoshas, I'll tell you that much.
Wood rats would take it and use the fiber in their wood rat nests.
Of course they would. Little wood rats.
That shit's warm, yo.
That shit is warm. Got the chat going off, talking about skunk number 1. Skunk number 1 was oh my god, is that you, Robert? Robert has been looking for sweet skunk number 1, just the sweet skunk number 1 for a long time. Robert, were you at the terpene party, Sam, here in Barcelona?
Yes.
Okay, well, Robert was the rock star guy that looks like David Lee Roth with the long hair, super awesome guy, always smiling. He was the one that gave us the bowl of rosin, like literally like
he
10
lived in Spain for a while.
He does live in Spain. He's got the LED, Carol's LEDs. He is looking for the skunk #1, a sweet version of it. He's been looking for a while. He's happy to pay. He just needs to be directed. He's asked me a few times. In my defense, both Sam and I have been unable to connect over, what would you say, like the last week or so, Sam?
I don't know, but I'm retired, so the guy has to find him from somebody who's got him.
Yeah, I thought you might just even know someone like Eddie or someone in Amsterdam that might have genetics that are along that line.
I'm really not sure.
Not sure, eh? Well, I'll do it. I'll figure it out, Robert. I'll look for you because you've really gone out of your way for me in the past, and I'll make sure that I'll try to track it down for you, dude. I will. I think I know someone maybe in California that has it. I think.
Yeah, there's a few people say they've got clones, but they usually don't have males. They've got females.
Interesting.
So you might be able to find a clone even if you can't find seeds, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I'm sure he'd be just as happy with either or. So missed him this year in Barcelona. We would have been hanging out. We would have had 2 great parties. That was really unfortunate that that all happened the way it did. I can't remember. Did I end up in Jamaica or something?
That I don't remember. I just, that's life.
That is life. Life is a crazy up and down experience. One day you're in Whistler, the next day you're not. That's how it's going to go here.
Or rest in peace to Chris Cornell, man.
Ooh.
That for a heavy part of the week, eh?
You know what? I'll tell you. Listen, my own perception on it was that I don't know Chris Cornell. Never hung out with the guy. I don't even know anyone that knows him. Of course, I was there in the 90s, and I went and saw Soundgarden and Temple of the Dog and all these concerts. I got to be there. I got to listen to the music. Sure, he has sort of dark music, but when I heard that he had killed himself, I was like, wow, that's weird. That guy didn't seem like a, like a kind of suicide guy or whatever. But it wasn't surprising a couple of days later to see the wife start blaming Ativan, for the side effects of Ativan, which is to affect your mental capacity, to slur your words, I think he had the majority of those things. I know from being in the backcountry up here in Whistler, the power of the mind and how you can fuck with the mind, because when people get hypothermic in the mountains, they'll do crazy shit like take off their clothes, fold them up, and then freeze to death on the snowbank. Like your mind can be greatly affected by these substances. And in my opinion, if you suffer from something like anxiety, you should be really, really, really careful with the compounds you put in your body to counteract and to interact with those feelings. That's just my opinion. I'm not a doctor, but I feel it very strong. Bummer. RIP for sure. Sad story. What a waste. Pharmaceutical drugs. Remember how in the beginning?
I don't have to take a tranquilizer before we come on Hash Church every time?
Well, no, you smoked 27 bong rips of resin.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
You're all lined up. Perfect. But it's true. Wow, what a bummer that so many people are feeling anxious and anxietous, that they're on all these different sort of pills. We were talking about it in Canada here, how, if you pass a joint under the new recreational laws to a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old, you could be looking at a maximum of 14 years in prison. But if you drive a school bus full of kids, you can take an extra Ativan that morning. Like, that's fucking crazy. That is completely, that's the most topsy-turvy comparison I've ever come up with in my own mind of the pharmaceutical industry and of the cannabis industry. It's pretty scary. I feel for all of you out there that are taking these pills. I'm not judging you at all. I know it's hard. Life is hard. Anxiety is rough. And I know we'll try anything to get away from it. But wow, be careful out there. Be careful who you trust. Be careful who you put your life's hands in, because some of these people aren't looking out for your well-being.
And this is the reality of the endocannabinoid deficiencies all over the world. And we're finding that since we have these endocannabinoid systems, and this caniopathic medicine has to be pushed to the forefront, because as we've seen in these states where it's medically legal and even legal, the decline in the use of these types of drugs, as I also saw another study at the Patients Out of Time on how cannabis helps people taper off of the harder pharmaceuticals that they're on, the polypharma that was discussed, which means, most people are not taking a single pharmaceutical drug. So they're taking many different drugs at a time to deal with a condition. And that usually the side effects of those conditions of the actual pills are worse than the actual symptoms that they're actually dealing with. I know, Doctor, you've seen this firsthand, and it was interesting to see a causality study where they actually saw a significant decrease again in the use of pharmaceutical drugs, but that was a natural tapering seems to happen by patients who are using cannabis. It seems to be an easier transition to not actually utilizing these. And they were giving actual taper. And again, see a physician. I am not an actual doctor here, so I always recommend tapering, but you have to actually you don't stop anything cold turkey in life. If you can taper it down and do things proper, but consult a physician always to do something like that, because your body is unique and different, and what you're taking is different, and you have different complications, and we all do. So you have to make sure being as educated and bring as much information as you can forward to your physician to make it as best an educated guess in the end.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're still practicing medicine. There's no expertising medicine, right, Doctor?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the thing is those benzos are just, they're just nasty, because they act on a series of receptors that are in the brain. It's not the cannabinoid receptors, but anti-anxiety is something that can be dealt with cannabis and not benzos. And
but then what do you tell somebody who says, but I get anxiety when I smoke cannabis?
I was going to say the company gets off the hook by having suicidal thoughts as a clinically documented side effect of the medicine. And so so you have these suicidal thoughts. Well, here's a guy who actually acted on those suicidal thoughts, and so you'd say, well, shit, how can that be an FDA approved medicine if one of the side effects can be
to convince yourself to die? Yeah,
the guy goes from being anxious to killing yourself, right?
Yeah, and it's not like it's a random occurrence. We know that it's actually quite a regular occurrence, that a lot of people have done this in the past.
Right. He's just happens to be one of the most famous ones recently to do it, and has touched so many lives that it's a reminder and a ripple through our reality that it affects us all.
Yeah, so you have to add the benzos to the opiates, because they're a different class of chemicals. They act on a different set of receptors, but maybe they aren't the all of the side effects of opiates, which actually can act on the central nervous system, just totally shut your body down. This just basically shuts your body down in a different way and convinces yourself that you're better off dead and that you should take your life. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, how many rock stars do we have to lose to medications before this really becomes something that they just realize that cannabis is a safe solution to take away anxiety? I mean, that's like, I think one of the earliest known uses, according to Meshulam, right? It was something that alleviated anxiety, which, if you think about it, if you're alleviating anxiety, I mean, it's going to be an inherited trait that gets passed on to your children. And in the way that you are able to survive, if you believe in Darwinism, is that, again, you can actually, control a lot of the function in your body by just not being in an anxiety state. And when you're in an anxiety state and you're stressed out, your body's making a lot of hormones, and there's a lot of things going on in your body where it's already on guard. If you're in a non-anxiety state, you're likely to be, you know, sort of recharging for when you need to use that anxiety energy for a life and death situation, and not just, you know, a few minutes from now.
Well, prohibition sure didn't help things. You know, you have a plant like cannabis that can take away anxiety, and then you have governments instill propaganda, prohibition, jail, all sorts of life-altering effects that create anxiety. And that's why certain people would hear you say cannabis can alleviate anxiety, and these people are like watching in Oklahoma going, I don't know where he's living, but fuck, cannabis sure doesn't relieve anxiety where I live. Because if you're going to get sentenced to 99 years, the cannabis laws, exactly.
Yeah, it's the cannabis laws that create the anxiety, and that's, yeah, absolutely, Mark. That's the tragedy of the situation, is that it's the laws that create the anxiety for the cannabis patient who's using it maybe for non-anxiety reasons. But it reasons to show, I mean, that even with any of these CNS compounds, so if you're taking antidepressants or if you're taking anything that acts on the central nervous system, I mean, the body's own pharmaceutical company is the endocannabinoid system. And so I think, as you know, Etienne pointed out earlier, this is all just nurturing deficiencies that our own body has in the endocannabinoid system. And I think once medicine is taught in such a way, it's really going to turn the pharmaceutical industry's model on their head, which is that you have to take this pill, this lorazepam pill. Lorazepam is the active ingredient in Ativan. You have to take this lorazepam pill when you start feeling depressed, or you start feeling whatever, you know, Chris went to for his doctor. I mean, I don't know what his condition was. Was it depression? Is that why he was taking this?
I was reading that it's depression, or at least that seems to be the main
yeah. So where was his doctor to say, yo, bro, you should try cannabis, dude? You know, so it's his doctor, you know, Michael Jackson's doctor, Prince's doctor. Where are these guys? These guys are tools of the pharmaceutical medical dictatorship that we live in, that want to just prescribe you a pill and collect your money.
And they're fucking with our music.
Yeah, they're taking away.
You know?
Well, this is also the frustration of the inconsistencies, pardon me, that we have. He could get access to pharmaceuticals that were, of course, easier access and consistent, as opposed to finding consistent cannabis on the road while traveling. We all know how difficult that is.
Chris was one of those rare artists who was able to just open up his soul on stage, and he was able to let you his very being. And maybe that, you know, exposes a musician to being depressed, or being, you know, having feelings of inadequacies, or not feeling, you know, that you're doing the best. But I mean, that's the thing, that his voice and his music just exposed his entire inner self. And maybe again, that put yourself in a situation where you're going to feel depressed at times. But it was just so moving to hear his last show and to see the photos, and to know that this guy, literally hours from that point, was no longer with us. Just really, really moving. That, and Colonel Bruce checking out a couple weeks earlier. Just, you know, again, we're losing some of the people that we've listened to for years. And even if you don't like the music, you have to still understand that the story is still there. If it hasn't happened to your musician, it probably will sometime soon, because unfortunately, that's some of the trappings of the industry, right?
It's a reality. You know, I watched, you know, Lane Staley, you know, go through. I had a friend of mine who tried to access and give him cannabis, and, you know, those people around him threatened to break his legs if they caught him trying to sell drugs to him. So even those around those musicians actually actively isolate them from access, because I know other people who have helped major players and major bands, I mean, worldwide bands that I know of, that are people who work behind the scenes because of all the work we did with Can. We got to know all kinds of musicians and traveling with them on the Horde tours and Lollapaloozas. We got to become very good friends with all their access people, and those access people have come to us time and time again asking for, you know, asking for cannabis to help get their friends off of the heroin and the serious drugs. You know, I knew one who had actually locked himself up in a hotel for 6 months and did so much heroin and nobody came in, and he had tunneled through the walls. And by the time they actually got in and saw, the room was absolutely, you know, there was unrecognizable and destroyed, but had so much money that they could keep, you know, anybody out. They just needed access to cannabis. And once they had access to cannabis, it changed his life completely around, and was able to get off the heroin and, you know, make life better. And I've seen that time and time again in the rock and roll worlds. But I also saw, you know, Lane Staley, you know, perish because of, you know, not having access to cannabis. And, you know, who knows, Kurt Cobain and access to others who suffered from depression, if they could have had, you know, consistent access without the, you know, intervention, you know, what is possible. Because, you know, I know myself in the rock and roll world, when I see musicians, when they come through, they're asking, where can they get it? Where can they access it? Because they've come from states or places that they don't have access to it. And I do everything I can if possible to make sure they have access to it, because it's just the love and appreciation that we have with cannabis. But it's absolutely frustrating to see so many people go down these paths that we've lost all through the years. We've lost so many great musicians to heroin and fentanyl and pharmaceutical drugs and alcohol that we have no idea, you know, if Hendrix could have had that joint that night, or, you know, Moon could have had something else that night, you know, saying that it's just all these questions that we'll never know the reality of because of the reality that is current. But we're working on changing that, aren't we all?
They just need to take some of like Keith Richards' stem cells.
Dude, he's gonna outlive cockroaches. I swear, that man is.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
There's never really been a person in like popular culture that's been more like, people have been more like for 30 years, people have been like, Keith's still alive. He's still alive. It's like, yeah, dude, he's totally alive. Like, I'm not sure why it's a thing, but poor Keith. What are you going to do, eh? What are you going to do?
I think he has blood transfusions to help him stay alive, right?
He had 2 full body transfusions along the way.
So I think that, you know, it helps if you have the money to be able to afford.
I heard he got blood transfusions from 15-year-old virgins.
Jesus, in Switzerland?
Let me guess, the Sam the Skunk Man patented 15-year-old virgins?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you always used to say, well, Keith, you know, is still alive, so it's kind of like some kind of party barometer, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, he's still here, so it must be okay for me to fill myself with all these farmies and junk.
Yeah, I don't hear the call to bubble wrap Keith Richards as much as I hear the call to bubble wrap Eddie Vedder right now.
Right. Yeah. No shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of people with appetites for destruction that aren't necessarily musicians, right?
That's true. That's true.
Oh, and that's another reason it's affected all of our lives. How many people have we gone to school with, or been friends with, or were best friends, or hell, I was even in a band with a friend who got so fucked up on heroin that he had heard. I heard he was shooting crack. You know, he fortunately cleaned himself up and got his life back together. And I'm very thankful that Steve is alive and is doing well. And I hear he's even working for Marshall guitar amps now, which makes me very happy and makes my soul very proud to see him carry on. But, you know, I watched my brother from another mother absolutely just steal everything from everyone around him and erode absolute trust to the point where no one could trust him within a certain amount of feet. I mean, and how many of us have had a reaction from a family member or a friend or something? You know, it's become way too commonplace on both sides of our border. You know about it in Canada as much as we know about it in the United States. And Sam, you see it all the time and have for decades in Amsterdam.
It's life in the big city.
I mean, when I first went to Amsterdam, we always had to have the concern because there were people working the train station, you know, stealing people's bags. And you had to be aware because you could see teams working all the time, unfortunately. So it's reality everywhere. But they've cleaned a lot of that up there at the Central Straat, right?
And the by the train station is there's a lot of enforcement.
Well, I talked to Todd a little bit ago. He says he's going to try and make it in for a little bit. I'll probably only rock a couple of hours today because it is such a beautiful day and I want to get out into Whistler.
You're going to get some snow time in, or are you going to go bike riding?
I think I'm going to go snowboarding, actually. It's the second last day of the season, and I got a ton of friends up there. It's mostly just hanging out in the park, hitting jumps and jibs and stuff like that.
Hey, Mark, did you know the hash maker grower Phil Popovich? Does that ring a bell with you?
Well, yeah, it does.
He was, I guess, he was